All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call our May 20th meeting to order. We always begin our meeting with a moment of silence, and today we are doing our moment of silence in remembrance of Rusty Rozelle. Rusty Rozelle was a 45-year employee of Mecklenburg County, and he was an advocate for water quality that entire time, and his family name goes back to the early foundings of North Carolina. And so he unfortunately passed away, and so tonight I'd like to remember him and his dedication to keeping our drinking water and water systems safe. So if you will, just join me in a moment of silence. Thank you, and now if you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Smith.
Good evening, everybody. Just a few announcements for you tonight. Wanted to let everybody know that NCDOT has closed the McCoy Road Bridge over Torrance Creek as of yesterday. They're doing that to make improvements to the structure's timber deck, and that closure is expected to last approximately 3 weeks, depending on the weather. The detour is in place for people who are traveling along McElwain, Beatties Ford Road, Bud Henderson Road, and Gilead Road to return them over to McCoy Road. Town offices are going to be closed this coming Monday, May 26th, in observance of Memorial Day, and HPD has an event coming up tomorrow, Scamming Education 101 for seniors, 12 p.m. at Arden of Huntersville. Also wanted to let everybody know NCDOT is going to be slightly adjusting the pedestrian crosswalk signal timing at the intersection right out here at 115 and Gilead Road. I checked this with engineering earlier today, but if I'm wrong and I get it wrong, please do come up and correct me. So the signal timing right now, when you get the walk signal to cross one of the roads, the light that conflicts with the intersection gets a green light at the same time. So we're moving to a leading pedestrian interval phase, which means when the pedestrian gets the light to walk, they will have a head start ahead of the light turning green at the conflict intersection. So a good example of that is if somebody is crossing 115, they will have a 3-second head start before somebody gets a green light to turn off of Gilead onto 115. And then wanted to let everybody know we have a Veterans Coffee Connection coming up at Huntersville Presbyterian Church, 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., and it'll be the second Friday of every month beginning June 13th. Veterans of all ages and military branches are welcome, and they're invited for free coffee, snacks, and conversation with fellow veterans. And that's all I had. Any questions?
Actually, I just want to thank Stephen and staff on the traffic, the change to the traffic light there to improve safety. That was born out of a discussion we had with the resident at our first budget engagement session. So that was, what, a week ago? And we've already gotten NCDOT saying okay and making that change. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Kelly.
Hi, my name's Julie, and I'm here because of the American Lung Association's Turquoise Takeover through Lung Force, their lung cancer awareness campaign. In 2022, I was diagnosed with lung cancer at 42 years old. I have 3 kids. They were 9, 11, and 13 at the time. I had no risk factors and no symptoms. It was caught by accident when my doctor ran a calcium score heart scan. It was a nightmare, and it was a miracle, because it was caught before it spread. In September of that year, I had half of my left lung removed and was then placed on a targeted therapy. Lung cancer kills more people than breast cancer, prostate cancer, and colon cancer combined. We receive less than 10% of funding. The 5-year survival rate across all stages is 27%. My story is not rare. It's not over. 20% of lung cancer patients have never smoked. Another 40% have already quit a substance that is known to be as addictive as heroin. All of us are fighting a disease society not so sadly tells us we deserve. Many people with cancer experience real and felt abandonment and betrayal, not just from our communities, but from our own bodies. You think you've done everything right, but you realize you can't protect yourself from everything. For me, it's like the years I spent being quiet and good. I was saving my voice for now. I've been to war. I've lost part of my body. I relive it a little bit every 3 months when I get scans. My targeted therapy pill delivers what's literally called a payload directly to cancer cells. It costs several $1,000s a month, and I get a runaround from insurance every single refill. The enemy still keeps me up at night, and I see my friends and support groups falling every day. But I stay because I know how often I've looked for survivors. Lung cancer has made me less concerned with being good and more concerned with what it means to be alive. I started therapy, I got a new job, we traveled, I joined the North Mecklenburg Community Chorus because at one point I was afraid I'd never be able to sing again. And I went to DC and I begged the staff of Senators Budd and Tillis and Representative Moore to believe that cancer research is the best defense spending our nation can ever spend. However, the budget they approved cut cancer research. It specifically cut lung cancer research from the small amount we had to 0. I hope to go to the state and ask them to enforce coverage for biomarker testing, which is crucial for treating both lung and breast cancer. Now I'm here, oversharing, and about to go watch my 6th grader play clarinet. So if you take a deep breath and you hold it, and you breathe, you're ready for a CT scan. There's no part squeezing or probing. You get to keep your clothes on, and that's what lung cancer screening is like. Unfortunately, it's only available for those over 50 with a smoking history. If that's you, you can go to savebythescan.org to see if you're eligible. Half of lung cancer patients wouldn't be eligible for this screening, so more awareness and funding will help us expand screening. If you're in this situation, consider asking your doctor about a calcium score scan like the one I had. It saved my life. The Lung Association uses turquoise as a signature color to light up buildings and stand out, but our ribbon color is actually white to signify the purity of breath despite the stigma, and to recognize the extremely high mortality. Our month is November, which is painfully quiet after October. Other organizations you can support besides the Lung Association are Go-To for Lung Cancer, Longevity, Lung Cancer Initiative, and the White Ribbon Project. I hope you'll consider spreading awareness and supporting these groups. But finally, remember, anyone with lungs can get lung cancer, but no one deserves it. Thank you.
All right. That's hard to follow, but we will follow it with a proclamation for Affordable Housing Awareness Month, which is something vitally important in our community. Whereas housing is a fundamental human right essential to the well-being and stability of individuals and families, and whereas, according to the Development Finance Initiative's Huntersville Housing Needs Assessment, nearly 1 in 4 households in Huntersville are low to moderate income, and whereas the rising cost of living and limited affordable housing options place immense financial pressure on households, particularly those with low to moderate incomes, leading to challenges in securing safe, stable, and affordable homes. And whereas over 80% of the low to moderate income households in Huntersville are cost burdened, overcrowded, lack complete kitchen facilities, or lack complete plumbing, according to the Huntersville Housing Needs Assessment. And whereas it is of the utmost importance to not only prioritize the development of new affordable housing, but to preserve it in the current affordable housing stock in our community. And whereas we must all come together to address this issue by engaging in activities that promote affordable housing solutions and improve residents' quality of life. Now, therefore, I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim May as Affordable Housing Awareness Month in Huntersville, North Carolina. Next, we have a proclamation for National Public Works Week. They're over here. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Huntersville. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Huntersville to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2025 makes the 65th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim the week of May 18th to May 24th as National Public Works Week in Huntersville, North Carolina. And thank you so much for all that you do for your town. We really appreciate you. One public comment, Matt Wolfinger. Are you here? And then you have time yielded, you're Chris. So you have 6 minutes.
Okay, good evening. My name is Matt Wolfinger, and my wife and I are here this evening to discuss the zoning request that you'll hear more about later this evening. We share 300 feet of lot line with the proposed development, and we recently sent a letter to all of you outlining 3 concerns. Thank you to Alicia and Amanda for responding that you received it, and you'll take that into consideration. I'd like to point out, too, that we had 9 concerns originally. We've worked really hard to address 6 of them. So we're down to 3, and that's a credit to all the folks involved, Brad, engineering, the developer, et cetera. Our 3 concerns are this. Issue number 1 is there's a sand filter spillway, and we're concerned about the additional runoff with the spillway, or specifically the direction of it. It's pretty simple. There's 4 acres of land that sheds water to our property today. Post-development, that will go to 7 acres, so 4 to 7, 175% increase. The designed sand filter will handle all normal types of storm events. For large storm events, though, the sand filter will breach and the water will exit via a spillway. That's what it's designed to do. The issue there is that the spillway will actually exit and still flow towards our property. So again, not 4 acres, 7 acres. And given the events of last year with Western North Carolina, this is not an if, it's a when. So it will happen at some point, hopefully not anytime soon. We would like for there to be a commitment that the spillway funnel water away from our property. And it's fairly easy to see when you look at any of the design documents. There are these topography lines, and they show where water is going to flow. So we're not asking for the sand filter to be resized to accommodate a larger event. We're asking simply for the spillway to be directed away from our property versus towards it. Issue number 2, there are privacy concerns that we have related to the sand filter berm. The berm is 11 feet higher than our property. And if you were to place a 6-foot-tall person on top of that berm, you now have a person with a 17-foot vantage point directly into our property. We don't think this is acceptable. Kind of using a baseball analogy, if you can imagine yourself in a baseball field standing at home plate, the berm is closer than the pitcher's mound, and instead of the pitcher's mound being 10 inches tall, it's 11 feet tall, and then place a pitcher on top of there. So I wouldn't want to be the batter in that situation. I certainly don't want to be the landowner next to that in that same situation. We're not asking for the berm to be resized. We probably can't do anything about that. It's 11 feet. What we are asking for are 2 things. 1, a commitment for hardscape landscape to be installed between the berm and our property. And 2, there's a walking path on top of there. We're asking for the walking path for that specific area to be removed. We're not asking for all the walking paths to be removed. There's a connection to the park. There are other amenities around the area. We're specifically asking for that place between the home plate and the pitcher's mound to be removed. That was issue number 2. Issue number 3 is there is a walking trail that's been designed to connect the new development to Blythe Landing Park. We think it's a better position for that walking path to be at the front of the subdivision versus at the rear. It would connect to the park amenities, restrooms, playground, volleyball courts, instead of the boat launch area. If you haven't been to Blythe Landing Park, there is no walkway between the boat launch area and the front, connecting those areas. So we're actually exacerbating a problem by funneling more traffic into the boat launch area and not to the actual amenity area. So we think it's a better place to place that. If you insist on keeping the trail in the designated area, again, I think it's a bad idea, but if you insist, we would ask for there to commitment to be a walking path fence and enhanced landscaping surrounding that path. We have an issue with trespassers right now on our property. They venture off of there. We can normally deal with that under normal circumstances, but funneling more pedestrian traffic through there is probably going to breed more trespassing there. Those are our 3 areas, our 3 concerns. They're not difficult, and I think fortunate for you, none of these solutions adversely impact the community, but they do help us. They help my wife and myself. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to your support.
Thank you. We are on to item number 7, agenda changes, adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt agenda?
And may I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Item number 8, consent agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Item number 9A, conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2026. Jackie Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Roberts, being absent tonight, has requested that I open tonight's public hearing with a few comments. So you're likely familiar with the previous presentation of the budget. If you'll advance the next slide, please. So this budget that we propose is in balance. I don't want to read the specific dollar figures for you. That will take a significant length of time, but the general fund is where the majority of our departments are budgeted, the traditional police and fire, parks and rec, public works that we spoke about tonight. The rest of the departments, generally speaking, are budgeted in the general fund. That's ballpark $90 million. There are other funds, the largest of which is our electric fund. There is a transportation reserve, HFFA. There are other funds, summing those as the budget as proposed is ballpark $125 million. So their revenue changes proposed in this budget are few and far between. There is no proposed change to the tax rate. There's no proposed change to the solid waste fee, the vehicle fee, stormwater fee, or the land development fees. Also on tonight's agenda is a very small adjustment to what I'm going to refer to as the REPS riders approved on the consent agenda. That would change electric bills, if memory serves, would increase an electric bill for a residential customer on average 5 cents a month. That's 60 cents a year. There is also a change to what was formerly the meter tampering fee. So this slide is a little bit different. We didn't present this one at the most when we presented the manager's recommended budget. So admittedly, there is a proposed use of fund balance in this budget of roughly $15 million. Some of that is a specific revenue source that can only be used for allowable expenses like PAL bill. And we're using a fair portion of the emergency services funds. These are funds that we received back from the fire department when we merged and became a municipal fire department, and these are specifically set aside for fire department equipment. The use of general fund balance is roughly $13 million. I'd like to take a second to talk about how much fund balance we have and what of that is available. And so you will hear people talk about our fund balance being relatively high at $80 million, and that's true. The portion of that that is available to be spent, to be budgeted by our commissioners has gone down. While the total amount has increased, the amount available for use for a future budget has actually decreased as a percentage of the total budget. There's two reasons for that. One is we continue to allocate fund balance, and in addition, that we also have an increase in our budget, and so that percentage has declined appreciably in the last 8 years. There are 14 new positions proposed in this budget. 10 of those are public safety related, 7 in the police department. There are additional new full-time positions in our fire department. There are 2 park positions proposed for the full year. There are 2 positions that we propose a half year in the communications and planning department. We also fund a shift differential. Specifically, that would relate to our police officers at this point. It could be eligible to other departments who work shift work. There is a retirement increase and the COLA, cost of living increase, and merit proposed for full-time employees is a total of 6%. Operating, as we continue to add new homes, there is an increased cost to provide solid waste services, in addition to the fact that there is a CPI increase according to the contract. We continue to devote $150,000 toward our attainable housing efforts. New Town Hall, you can see well out of the ground. We hope to be in it near the end of this calendar year, and there will be a cost associated with operating that building. And there are a couple of planning studies that we also contemplate would impact our operating budget. The budget is fairly capital intensive. It is unusual for us to fund as substantial a portion of a park project as we do in this year, but $4.6 million proposed for the park adjacent to Fire Station number 4. There are $750,000 associated with new sidewalks, in addition to the $500,000 we budget every single year to make repairs to existing sidewalks. There are additional road projects, as you see listed here. And there are things that I would refer to as recurring capital. So that's replenishing police cars in the police department, some IT-related upgrades, pickup trucks, other related equipment. There, we use some transportation reserve funds, and we make payments on our existing debt in addition to the debt that has been issued in the last 24 months. We have held 2 public information sessions, and immediately after the most recent board meeting, we had Wednesday the 8th, if memory serves, a budget workshop where we talked about things we might change. I don't think this is an exhaustive list.
Jackie, can you move in front of the microphone? We can't hear you.
Sure. There are other changes that we contemplate we may make. Some of them are listed here. There are other changes that might happen besides these. And the final thing I'll say is we contemplate, so our budget is 215 pages. It's on our website. We expect at the next board meeting, we expect to adopt. There are many directors in this room who have who go to a significant amount of work to get us to this point in the budget process, and I want to specifically thank them for the work that they have done, in addition to all of those directors and their staff that work on this budget. In the finance department in particular, Patty and Joy and the entire finance staff have a significant role to play in putting this together, and I specifically want to say thank you for that. At this point, I would ask if there are people signed up to speak.
Just one, Mr. Gammon. You want to do your 3 minutes?
Frank Gammon, 30-year resident of the town of Huntersville. Madam Mayor, Commissioners, Ms. Huffman, thank you for serving the town, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. It's budget time again, and surprise, I'm back to request that you eliminate the town solid waste fee. Removal of residential solid waste is an essential service responsibility of the town. It has been said from the dais for a number of years that the town pays 80% of the cost, and the residents, our homeowner that is, pays the other 20%. of solid waste pickup. This was stated as recently as 6 May town board meeting. However, if you read page 3 of this year's budget, it states that the homeowner is paying 58% of the cost and the town is paying 42%. I contend that the 42% that the town's paying is also the residents paying that. I contend that when the homeowner pays their property taxes, they pay 100% of their solid waste fee. However, the town, in my view, diverts 58% to somewhere else in the budget and then returns the homeowner and charges the homeowner that 58% again. Today, that charge is $154, which when looked at as a quasi-property tax adds an additional 2 cents to the current property tax rate. This all began in 2008 when the town board created this fee. In 2008, it was $36 and has grown gradually over the last 17 years. As a homeowner in Huntersville, I, like the frog, is swimming in the proverbial pot on the stove as town boards over the years have gradually turned up the heat. I thank you for not raising it again, but I ask you to eliminate it altogether or turn down the heat and reduce the fee. It amounts to a repressive tax on all homeowners in the town regardless of their socioeconomic level. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions for Jackie about the budget? No? Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll do item 9B. Conduct a public hearing for traffic calming measures on Devonshire Drive and Cockerham Lane.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, Deputy Manager Huffman. I'm here to present the traffic calming for 2 streets, Devonshire Drive and Cockerham Lane. So we'll start with the area this is in. This is just west of 77, south of Birkdale Village. Devonshire is pretty windy, and it intersects Birkdale Commons Parkway and all the way to the other side at North Cross Drive. You can see in the red lines, that's where Devonshire is. That was the portion that was studied. And then Cockerham Lane, that's the portion that was also studied. So first we'll look at Devonshire. This is just past Stone Mount. You can see the pool just underneath that one existing hump. So just past the clubhouse, and then it's over a bridge and around the curve. That's where the area that we studied was. You can see there's 2 existing speed humps to date. This is a view on the west side of the cross-section. It's just a wide, open road. It's around 28 to 30 feet wide. We've got curb and gutter and sidewalk on one side. There are no homes and there's no driveways on this side. If you look at it from the other end, this is where you'll see the bridge and the brick wall. Now, the road actually necks down to around 26 feet wide when we get to the bridge. But the same idea, curb and gutter, got the sidewalk on one side. So now we'll go to Cockerham Lane. This also intersects at Devonshire, and this is just past the bridge. So here's a view of Cockerham. Similar throughout the whole neighborhood. No pavement markings, curb and gutter, and sidewalk on one side. It's a little bit difficult to see here, but this image is from the low point of Cockerham. So it's pretty high up at the stop sign, which is Devonshire, and then it goes down to the bottom, and then it comes back up at Oxbridge. This is the area that we studied. So for the traffic calming policy, it starts with the community, the HOA, requesting for the study. We go out and do the study, and we're collecting the 85th percentile of speeds. So on Devonshire, we came up with 34 miles per hour, and on Cockerham, it was 31 miles per hour. So both of these exceeded the threshold of the policy. The policy states that if the 85th percentile is over 5 miles per hour, then we continue with the study. After that, the community did their awareness campaign and submitted us their documents. We also start with type 1 solutions, which means we ask for increased police presence, and then we install temporary feedback signs which alert the drivers what their actual speed is. After that, about a month or two after all of that has completed, we do a second round of study. So we return to the same locations, and again, we collect the 85th percentile speeds. Unfortunately, nothing changed. It's the exact same data that we had the first time. So now we move on to type 2, which is a physical measure for the project. So then I come up with solutions with the community to decide what kind of proposals we're going to come up with, and then we're here today for me to show you what our proposals are. So we'll start with Devonshire. We have two options for Devonshire. So the first option would be to add 2 speed humps. You can see here the yellow triangles are the existing speed humps. They are currently around 1,400 feet apart. By adding the 2 other speed humps, one on each side of the bridge, it brings us more to a desirable spacing for the speed humps. So now we're closer to 300 to 500 feet, which is what we'd prefer for a spacing of speed humps. Now the second option is a little bit different. The proposal is to to stripe the center line of Devonshire. So from Stone Mount all the way around to the curve. Now, when the road has no striping, no markings, drivers tend to just drive down the center of the road. When you put a marking in the middle, it keeps you in your lane. It's a little bit more uncomfortable for a driver, and that tends to make the driver drive a little slower. So those are the 2 for Devonshire. So now we'll go to Cockerham. We only have one solution for Cockerham, and it's to place the speed hump close to the bottom of the sag of the road, so around 200 feet north of Oxbridge Lane. And there's a nice location to put it there where there's no driveways to interfere. Here's an example picture of a speed hump with the markings, curb and gutter, sidewalk. Now the policy also says that we ask our police and fire department their ideas of the proposals. The community also had a preference, and it's pretty much the consensus was to stick with the speed humps that are already in the neighborhood and just keep it simple. So that's all I have on this traffic calming, if anyone has any questions.
What is the time frame? If this is approved, what are we looking at time frame wise?
So once it's approved, I have to change the sketches a little bit for Public Works, and then I put it in the system for Public Works. I would assume we could have it done this summer, because we're in almost in June, so closer, like September, 2-3 months in Public Works to gather everything, signs, pavement markings.
So my question is on Devonshire. You mentioned that one of the solutions is to stripe. Okay, dumb question. Why don't we stripe all of Devonshire if it's relatively the same width to create that visual?
We could do that. We could stripe the whole Devonshire. If the whole width isn't wide enough for a car to park and a vehicle to pass within that one lane of the yellow center line, then we'd have to stop all on-street parking. Because our guidelines are, if you park your car, you have to have at least 12 feet for an emergency vehicle to get through.
So in this area that we're going to stripe, will there be no parking signs? Or is it wide enough for it, or?
We could put no parking signs. It is in the code, town ordinance, that if you can't leave 12 feet when you park, that you're not supposed to park there.
So I guess the question is, come on, Stephen. I can see you just like, you're like.
Sure. So I think Laura was saying it. I'll try to say it maybe a little bit different. So
I'm kind of slow, I know.
no, it's about perspective. So in the town code of ordinances, if you don't have enough clear, then you can't park there, whether you have a sign or not. Signs would be redundant at that point. But not knowing the width of the road throughout the whole subdivision, you could create areas where there is no parking. In this particular area of Devonshire, there are no homes that front the street. So if you add a center line, there's no parking, there's no homes directly adjacent that possibly could be impacted unless there was a large community event or something like that. So we look to try to avoid that in neighborhoods where the streets are narrower and there are a lot of homes that have driveways there. Then you basically eliminate all on-street parking if that was the case. But in this case, there are no homes that front in that area.
Okay,
But
got
you could do it for the whole street, but then you could create some no parking or parking restriction.
Well, it might be interesting just to measure it, because if it's an effective tool for slowing people down, and there's enough width for parking, I don't see what it would hurt, but other than Kevin would be going, now I got to paint another street.
Well, first, Laura, thank you for the walk down memory lane, because I used to bike with my family on Devonshire all the time. So it was lovely to see these pictures again. But in that experience, I kind of wanted to bring up, because just to mention it, if we would consider looking at just doing the lines, that bridge and the sidewalk on that bridge is a narrow sidewalk. It's used by a lot of families, both pedestrian and on bikes, with the Birkdale pool nearby. And I just know in my experience, and when we lived in Macaulay and seeing other families on that road a lot, we often would end up biking into the street, because on one side you have a wall, and on the other side, kind of a rail fence with a creek underneath. And for families with kids whose kids are not the best at biking yet, it was a recipe for disaster. So we would cycle and, walk on that a lot. And I remember having fear many times of having cars, come around, and, the curve is just a little bit further down. So I am personally really in support of the speed humps. I think having them on both sides of the bridge is a great idea.
Can I just go back to Commissioner Walsh's question? I'm not sure if I fully understand. We don't know how wide the road is, so you can't say whether or not there's room for there to be a car parked. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, I'm sorry. It varies throughout the,
Okay.
so I have for tonight, I could tell you, just before Stone Mount, it's actually pretty wide. Just before Stone Mount, it's around 30 feet wide there, 31 feet. And then it necks down onto the bridge, and then it comes back out again.
Okay.
But if I could recommend, we have this idea already in Stratton Farms. That is a marked center line. There's no homes, no driveways. That one does have also a marked bike lane, but it's the same idea of what we're suggesting.
Stratton Farm Road?
Yes. The whole length of it is striped.
So I live right off of Stratton Farm Road.
Okay.
And I don't think it helps.
So it was placed there, I think I looked it up, and it was like 2014 or possibly even earlier.
Yeah.
But my understanding was it was not marked before then, and there was a lot of speeding, and then they came in and decided to mark, and that.
I'm sure it did help. I didn't see the before, but there aren't a lot of houses. I think it slows people down enough for a street that cuts through a neighborhood. I think it, from my perspective, I think it works for that street, even though people are still speeding. Can you go to the slide that shows where you'd put the proposed speed humps? I think I had, okay, so the bridge is between that,
It's pretty much
underneath the 480?
Yeah.
Okay, so initially, I was wondering why we would put a speed hump like right after an intersection. It seems odd, like if somebody was coming from Stonemont and turning right, or the other and turning left, that there would be a hump right there. And I was wondering if we do that in other neighborhoods, but I guess because of the bridge, there's really not a lot of room.
It is because of the bridge. You don't want it too, well, we don't want it on the bridge.
Yeah.
We don't want it too close, so I just put a number, I think it's 75 to 100 feet from the bridge.
Okay.
I'm sure I could tighten it in. I could move it closer to the bridge.
Okay. Okay. No, that's fine. That makes sense now that I'm seeing the bridge and the placement.
This is probably for Chief or Major. We got complaints that teenagers are driving like maniacs on those roads. and students are getting out of school here soon. Could we increase some watch on those areas until we figure out which one we want to do?
Sure, I'd be more than happy to put that on our traffic watch list. That's not a problem at all. We can put up some signs as well, flashing speed limit signs.
Thanks.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 10A, consider final action on petition R24-16, a request by Cottage Properties of Lake Norman. Mr. Priest.
Good evening. Thank you. So yes, so the petition before us is a consideration for final action for a 17-lot subdivision. As a refresher course, since we haven't been here since the public hearing, the property is located just to the west of Blythe Landing Park on NC 73, rezoning to NRCD. Just a couple of highlights. You see the subdivision there in front of you. Again, 17-lot subdivision, increasing in density, and then also asking for 2 modifications. And again, a highlight to the plan is the pedestrian connection from the end of the cul-de-sac into Blythe Landing Park. The ordinance modifications are the length of the cul-de-sac. So the ordinance allows 350 linear feet. They're proposing 600. And the urban open space has more SCM or stormwater control measure than is allowed by the ordinance. And so they're asking for an acceptance of that with amenitization. And here's an updated photo of the proposed amenity area. That's their stormwater control management device with a walking trail around it, landscaping on the outside of it with some rocks and a small bridge going over the corner there as an attractive park space. The 2040 Huntersville Community Plan, staff recommends that many of these policies are being met. The intensification is right in the middle there of the recommended 1 to 3 units per acre. Moderate density, so it's right in the middle, and so it meets it well. And again, one of the policies is to improve access to parks, and the subdivision is doing that, is working with Mecklenburg County to provide pedestrian access. Recommendations, staff recommends approval with some clarifications and some additional notes on the plan. Those are listed for you, 1 through 6. Have spoken with the applicant. They have agreed to clarify these items. The planning board last month also recommended unanimous approval with similar conditions to the staff recommendations. So that concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions that you have, and also the applicant is here to answer any questions.
Brad, can you enter your staff report for the record?
I will enter my staff report into the record.
Thank you so much.
There's a reference to a berm. I'm not aware of where there's a berm being built on the property.
Yes, so there's not necessarily a berm. It's part of the stormwater control device. Now, this is a preliminary concept design, but the berm, I think what's intended is just the hill or the bowl aspect of the actual pond device. In this specific situation, the property goes downhill from 73 down to the back corner of the property. So the bowl is cut in toward the bottom, and after you get out of the bowl comes back up of the pond, you're going to have the little sidewalk area, and then you're going to have a quick drop because it gets down to before they have to have an undisturbed buffer. So where the sidewalk is kind of going to be on an apex, so to speak. So it's not necessarily a berm. There's no landscaping on it. It's not put there to actually do screening. It's just the shape of the resultant topography of the land.
And the undisturbed buffer between there and the adjoining property, what does that look like?
So
Big
that,
and, is it going to be opaque, that kind of stuff?
correct. It would be required to be opaque. It would have existing vegetation. There is existing trees. If you look on the picture on the left, you'll see an area where there are existing large maturing specimen trees. that will remain. Again, inside that dotted line to the left will be untouched. And then in addition to that, it's got to be opaque, so there'll be shrubs and evergreen trees planted, which when they grow up, it'll create an opaque buffer.
Thank you.
The resident questioned the spillway. Will that exit toward or away from the property?
I'm sorry,
The
Commissioner.
resident questioned the spillway. Will that exit toward or away from their property?
So it goes toward the property because that's where the water runs now, and that's the natural flow of the water. So the pond will slow the water, keep the water, maintain the water, and then let it go at a reduced rate, so it slows it down. The direction is just based on the topography of how the land flows. So yes, it would be directed. You see the pipe, when it fills up and it goes down, it will slowly release toward the back corner of the property.
Also, during the planning board meeting, the concepts of the homes were different than what we have in our packet. Do you know what is going to be there? It's going to be what the planning board was presented or what we have in our packet?
So that is an unaddressed question, and the applicant could probably talk to that a little bit more, but there's not necessarily a commitment to do a specific architectural style for the homes. Staff is requesting that they just incorporate some front porches and keep the garages recessed from the front plane of the home. And so that is an outstanding comment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going back to the sand filter berm and the concern the neighboring property owner has. Is it possible to divert the water a different direction from where that is? Is
it possible? I would defer to engineering on that. It's possible. I would think it would take a lot of regrading in order to do that, to make that feasible and possible. Again, sure. If you'd like the applicant to speak,
Yeah, that'd be great.
we're on that.
So I'm Ryan with the development firm. So we actually looked at that, the topography and we of course have to go through final CD development and everything with the stormwater control. So we are going to take that into consideration. Again, this is just a sketch plan. So we will work with Matt and his wife on kind of steering it towards the inlet of the, I'm going blank on the term of the lake, but we pointed it out last time. It can't shift much, but there is opportunity that we can shift it slightly. The topography, I'm not sure where we're getting 11 feet from, but we're working with them and wanted to get the final approval here in regards to the buffer landscape measures for installment here. But ideally, shifting 5 feet to the right, we can do that, but it won't make much of a difference of what's currently flowing in that direction anyway.
Don't go away. I don't know, I would like to see that shift 5 feet. It might not make a huge difference, but it might make a difference. So I would like to see that. A trail locate, or actually, I'm going back to Commissioner Quarles. Oh my gosh. Commissioner Quarles' question about the recessed garages and designs, overall designs. Do you have more on that?
Yeah, so we currently build in Huntersville, know all the requirements to meet Patrick and Aldarius's setback requirements and build 2 lines. We have not developed that product yet, so we don't want to share something that we have not value engineered. But as far as, is it on here? Okay. What we presented last time was the concept of what we want. We just needed to enlarge the front porch. I think it was only a 4-foot front porch, but we're planning on doing a minimum 8-foot to 10-foot front porch, and then recessed garages. I think Patrick's requirement is 2 to 5 feet behind, or I think it's 2 feet behind the heated living space. So we will have to go through building permits and meet all those requirements with zoning and building but we are on board for those requirements.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay. So we talked about the spillway and the berm. There was talk about a trail location. Can somebody show me where that location is?
Is this showing on your screen here?
Yes.
So to the right of where it says spillway on the north here, that is the trail that has been agreed upon with Mecklenburg County to the right of that marker. Well, yeah, I think.
Is that it?
Is that it?
Yes, and so that is a paved trail. I think we were originally starting at 10 feet, and we agreed to reduce it down to an 8-foot paved trail, going from our cul-de-sac to the paved surface of Blythe Landing on the parking lot.
I'm not sure I'm following that. Can we look at a different picture maybe?
So the trail, there's the marker. So this is the trail
Oh, gotcha.
to the park, and there's an additional trail that goes right around here.
So it's not on the top of the elevation, it's around the little pond area?
It's just around the pond, right on the perimeter.
Okay.
And you could see it a little bit better too. There you go.
This version, yeah.
Yeah, on this site plan version here.
So the trail won't be high on the, like it won't be?
It'll be higher than the property line. It's going to be higher than the adjacent property line because again, if you go back to the topography, it's higher here. This is higher than here because again, the land is flowing downhill toward the back corner.
Can you go back to the concept?
So the top of berm is 779.
This concept?
Okay. But then there's the 40-foot buffer and it's going to be opaque?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. That doesn't have the topography on it.
No.
Yeah. Where did I put it? There it is. So you can see the trail around the SEM, and you just picture where those trees are. It's kind of going to go down. That's not an accurate representation of the topography.
Is the Wolfinger's property my top left,
Correct.
right here?
Probably more this area here.
Oh, okay. We just figured out we can touch the screen and mark on it, so we're pretty excited about that. Up there, okay. And so they had also asked for like diverting of the path to Blythe to a different direction. Is that something that could be considered versus going like behind their property going?
So staff is recommending that stay where it is. It's at a good location.
Okay.
It connects, again, the end of the cul-de-sac to an existing trail on the park. There was some discussion early on about it moving to the front, but it would be a little bit duplication of the sidewalk that's going to be on 73, that people could just walk down the street sidewalk, connect to 73, and then go into the park down the street. So having it spaced appropriately at the end of the cul-de-sac, staff recommends that's just a good location from a planning perspective.
And is there an opportunity to have a fence there for the neighbors or something of that ilk?
We are installing a fence, and there was talks about a gate at a time.
Okay.
We're open to a gate.
Okay.
Staff did not want the gate at the time, wanted it open to, for the 2040 plan to meet those requirements.
Right, to connectivity, yeah, okay. Commissioner Marksman?
Yeah, can you go back to that picture of the open space, the sand filter again?
Just want to start over.
Yeah, so the buffer, where the little red mark is right now, that's the buffer area. How densely wooded is that?
Again, look at the aerial photo, might help.
And also, like, while you're trying to figure that out, topography of the buffer area, I'm just curious where that sits in relation to the adjacent property and the sand filter as well.
Topography currently is, in that corner is 770, adjacent parcel is 740 at where their house sits, 740 to 772, sorry, 772 to 774. Where the pond is currently is 770. Top of berm on our sketch plan was showing 779. So in that disturbed buffer, it will remain roughly around 770 to 772.
Okay, so in layperson's terms, just for those listening, because
It is now, I mean, the undisturbed buffer will stay, so you'll see that remain at roughly 770 to 772.
okay, so if someone is standing on top of or standing on that little walkway around the trees in the buffer area, will that shield the way that it is right now from the adjacent?
I don't know knowing the maturity of the trees, I would assume yes. I don't have based on the width and the DBH of those trees, I would assume yes, but you'll be at 779, so you'll be 7 feet higher than the ground existing at the bottom of the roots.
Okay, and then I just kind of wanted to also reinforce that you mentioned that you're committed to working with adjacent property owners on, some of these outstanding things. I just want to, reinforce that. That's important
Yes,
to do that.
Plans for, this is going to be we call it a boutique community, heavily landscaped with arborvitae, maturing trees, a very good buffer along 73, so we're going to mirror that buffer of landscaping that we're doing on the front, on the back end as well. It's just hard to commit to something now without stormwater's review. So once we go through full CDs and finish that out, then we're fine to commit to any commitments to the neighbors there.
Okay, and then just the last thing, because you did mention that you are going to install a fence. Can you just show, would it be along the whole trail or a portion of it? Can you just kind of specify?
Not along the trail. So right now, I believe there's a split rail fence. It will be open on both sides of the trail going outside of our property. So along there, you'll see, so you have the property line on the north end, and then you have this, well, that's a little bit thicker than I wanted, but the darker black line here will be plans for probably a 6-foot, you call it a dog ear fence with the rounded edge on top. Most likely will be that. And then each individual property, when we go to sell these will have black aluminum fences. But along the property line here and then all the way down here to each property line, we have intentions of doing a 6-foot privacy dog ear fence.
Any other questions? No? Okay, are we ready for a motion?
I make a motion to approve petition R-2416, Blythe Landing Residential. In considering the petition, it is consistent with the following implementation goals: policy LU 1.1, LU 5, LU 7.1, LU 8.2, LU 9.1, LU 11.1, policy EOS 3, and EOS 8 of the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan. Approval is conditioned on the following: the submitted open space concept is committed to with a zoning node on sheet CZ-302, along with the modification request. Number 2, the build to line is established for an average of 15 to 40 feet for lots 1 and 7, and 15 to 25 feet for the rest of the lots as shown in the rezoning plan. Number 3, tree mitigation is provided per Article 7 of the rezoning ordinance. Number 4, clarification on building architecture committed to include front porches and recessed garages. Number 5, additional yard restriction modification is removed. Number 6, a paved path around the SCM. Number 7, all other minor comments are addressed by staff. Approval is also based upon, for the following modifications. Number 1, a cul-de-sac and block length modification for 350 to 600 feet. Acceptance of the amenitized SCM open space as shown in the concept plans. With these conditions, it is reasonable and in the public interest to approve R24-16 because the development buffers adjacent development appropriately, has density consistent with the recommendations of the moderate density area of the Huntersville 2040 plan, and creates pedestrian connectivity to the adjacent park and provides an excellent urban open space for the residents of the neighborhood.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 11, closing comments. Commissioner Rivers? Commissioner Walsh? Dimas? Commissioner Hunt? Quarles? Bergsman? Okay, I have one thing to add. Hope everyone will join us on Monday, Memorial Day at 11 a.m. at Veterans Park for our annual Memorial Day celebration. Hope to see you there. And now may I have a motion to adjourn?
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.